Commander Thakmor walked slowly around the human prisoners, his yellow eyes studying them with growing amusement. The crew of the captured Earth vessel Star Runner stood in chains inside his flagship's detention bay. Their hands were bound, but their faces showed no fear. This puzzled the reptilian commander more than he cared to admit. The Velthari Empire had been expanding across this sector for decades. Every species they encountered either surrendered immediately or fought with desperate fury before being crushed. These humans were different. They stood quietly, watching everything with calm eyes. "Remove their armor," Thakmor ordered his guards. The alien soldiers began stripping the protective gear from the 5 human prisoners. Captain James Mitchell, a tall man with gray hair, watched silently as his suit was taken away. Engineer Emma Walsh, a young woman with short brown hair, said nothing as the aliens examined her equipment. Pilot Tom Bradley and Communications Officer David Parker remained still. Only medic Lucy Harper seemed slightly nervous, but she too stayed quiet. Thakmor picked up one of the human suits and held it up to the light. The material felt impossibly thin between his clawed fingers. It was flexible like cloth, nothing like the thick metal plates his own warriors wore. He squeezed it, twisted it, and even tried to tear it with his sharp nails. The fabric simply bent and returned to its original shape. "This is what humans wear into battle?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Subcommander Kexval, his second-in-command, lifted another suit and examined it closely. "Commander, this appears to be some kind of ceremonial clothing. Perhaps these are not warriors at all, but merchants or civilians." The other Velthari officers gathered around to look at the strange human equipment. They passed the suits between them, each one more confused than the last. Their own battle armor was made from quantum-hardened ceramics that could stop plasma fire and withstand impacts from starship weapons. It was thick, heavy, and colored deep black to strike fear into enemies. These human garments looked like something worn to a festival, not a battlefield. "The intelligence report said humans were expanding into our territory," Kexval continued. "But if this is their military equipment, they pose no threat to our empire." Thakmor nodded, but something bothered him. The humans had not tried to escape when captured. They had not begged for mercy or offered to pay tribute. They simply waited and watched. In his experience, truly weak species did not behave this way. He approached Captain Mitchell, the apparent leader of the group. The human was shorter than Thakmor but built solidly. His blue eyes met the alien commander's gaze without flinching. "Human, what is your rank and purpose in this sector?" Thakmor demanded. "Captain James Mitchell, Terran Defense Corps," the man replied calmly. "We were on a routine patrol when your ships attacked without warning." "Terran Defense Corps?" Thakmor laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the detention bay. "You call yourselves defenders while wearing cloth into space battles?" Mitchell said nothing, but Thakmor noticed the slight smile that crossed his face. It was not the expression of a defeated prisoner. It was the look of someone who knew something his captors did not. The alien commander turned to examine the other equipment taken from the human ship. Their weapons looked equally primitive, small handheld devices with simple designs. Their communication equipment was tiny compared to Velthari technology. Even their medical supplies seemed basic and outdated. "Sir," one of his technicians called out, "we have finished analyzing their vessel. The hull material is unusual." "Explain," Thakmor ordered. "It appears to be the same substance as their armor, Commander. We cannot determine its composition with our standard scanners. It reads as organic in some ways, but synthetic in others. Our cutting beams had little effect during the boarding action." This was troubling news. The Velthari had boarded the human ship easily enough, but only because the humans had not resisted. They had simply surrendered when faced with overwhelming numbers. At the time, Thakmor had assumed this proved their weakness. Now he wondered if there had been another reason. "Have you questioned the other crew members?" he asked Kexval. "Yes, Commander. They give only name and rank, nothing more. The female engineer claims to be Emma Walsh. The pilot says he is Tom Bradley. The communications officer calls himself David Parker. The medical officer is Lucy Harper. All refuse to provide technical information about their equipment or ship." Thakmor studied the humans again. They stood calmly despite being prisoners of a species known throughout the galaxy for its cruelty. The Velthari had a reputation for torturing captured enemies and enslaving entire populations. Yet these humans showed no signs of fear. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should test their equipment more thoroughly. Prepare the materials testing chamber. I want to see exactly how effective human armor really is." "An excellent idea, Commander," Kexval agreed. When these humans see their precious protection destroyed by our weapons, perhaps they will be more willing to talk. As the guards began moving the prisoners toward the testing facility, Thakmor caught Captain Mitchell's eye again. The human was still smiling slightly, as if he found the entire situation amusing rather than terrifying. For the first time since the capture, Commander Thakmor felt a small doubt creep into his mind. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered prisoners who seemed so unconcerned about their fate. The human prisoners were marched through the corridors of the massive Velthari warship. Captain James Mitchell walked calmly between two armed guards, his hands still bound behind his back. Behind him, Engineer Emma Walsh, Pilot Tom Bradley, Communications Officer David Parker, and Medic Lucy Harper followed in similar fashion. The alien soldiers kept their weapons ready, but the humans showed no sign of attempting escape. The testing chamber was enormous, filled with sophisticated equipment that hummed with power. Banks of computers lined the walls, and in the center stood a complex machine designed to test materials under extreme conditions. Dozens of Velthari officers had gathered to watch the demonstration. Word had spread quickly through the ship about the strange human armor. Commander Thakmor entered the chamber with Subcommander Kexval at his side. The reptilian leader carried one of the confiscated human suits draped over his arm. Under the bright lights of the testing facility, the material looked even more fragile than before. It appeared to be made of interwoven fibers that shifted color slightly as they caught the light. Begin the standard tests, Thakmor ordered his chief technician, a thin alien named Vextar who had overseen thousands of material analyses. The human suit was placed inside the testing apparatus. Mechanical arms positioned it carefully while sensors recorded every detail. The first test would be simple kinetic impact, the same projectiles used to penetrate enemy armor during space battles. Fire when ready, Vextar announced. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber as the first projectile struck the human suit. Every Velthari in the room expected to see the fabric torn apart. Instead, they watched in stunned silence as the projectile simply stopped. The material absorbed the impact without showing any visible damage. The projectile fell harmlessly to the floor of the testing chamber. Increase power, Thakmor commanded, his voice betraying the first hint of concern. The second projectile struck with twice the force of the first. Again, the suit remained undamaged. The third shot could have punched through the side of a building, yet the human armor simply rippled slightly and returned to its normal shape. Murmurs of disbelief began spreading through the gathered officers. Some moved closer to the viewing screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. This was impossible. Nothing could absorb that kind of kinetic energy without being destroyed. Try plasma weapons, Kexval suggested, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The testing apparatus switched to energy weapons. Plasma bolts that could melt through Velthari battle plates struck the human suit. Instead of burning through the material, the plasma seemed to spread across the surface before dissipating harmlessly. The suit glowed briefly with absorbed energy, then returned to its normal appearance. Captain Mitchell watched the proceedings with interest but no surprise. When Commander Thakmor glanced at him, the human captain's expression remained calm and even slightly amused. This reaction infuriated the alien commander more than the test results. Use the cutting laser, Thakmor snarled. Full power. The cutting laser was designed to slice through starship hulls during salvage operations. Its beam could cut through metals that were harder than diamond. Vextar activated the device, and a brilliant blue beam struck the human suit. For several minutes, the laser poured energy into the fabric. The Velthari watched eagerly, certain that this would finally destroy the mysterious material. But when the beam shut off, the suit remained completely undamaged. There was not even a scorch mark on its surface. This cannot be happening, Vextar muttered, checking his instruments repeatedly. Our sensors show the energy is being absorbed, but we cannot detect where it goes. Engineer Emma Walsh spoke for the first time since being captured. You might want to check your power readings on that laser, she said quietly. Vextar looked at his displays and gasped. The cutting laser was drawing far more power than usual, as if something was draining energy from the ship's main systems. But the human suit showed no signs of overload or damage from the massive energy input. Impossible, Kexval breathed. No material can absorb unlimited energy without breaking down. Try acid, another officer suggested desperately. Chemical baths that could dissolve Velthari equipment were applied to the suit. The acid simply rolled off the surface without effect. Temperature tests followed, extreme cold that would make most materials brittle, and heat that would melt steel. Nothing changed the suit's properties. As test after test failed, the mood in the chamber grew increasingly tense. The Velthari had built their empire on superior technology and overwhelming firepower. Their confidence came from knowing that their weapons could destroy anything they encountered. But this simple human garment was proving more durable than their most advanced materials. What is this substance? Thacmore demanded, turning to face Captain Mitchell directly. The human captain remained silent, though his slight smile had not faded. His crew stood equally quiet, showing no signs of surprise at their equipment's performance. Answer me. Thacmore roared, his control finally slipping. What kind of primitive species creates armor that surpasses our greatest achievements? Still, the humans said nothing. Their silence was more unnerving than any threat or boast would have been. They watched the increasingly frantic tests with the calm patience of people who already knew the outcome. Sub-Commander Kexval approached his superior. Commander, perhaps we should try different approaches. Molecular breakdown, quantum disruption, temporal field generation. Yes, Thacmore agreed quickly. Use everything we have. I want to know how this material works. But even as he gave the orders, a cold fear was growing in his mind. If human standard equipment was this advanced, what other surprises did this species possess? Hours had passed since the testing began. The Velthari had tried everything in their arsenal against the human suit. Molecular disruptors that could break apart solid rock had no effect. Quantum field generators that twisted space itself around the target left the fabric unchanged. Even their most experimental weapons, devices so dangerous they were rarely used, failed to damage the mysterious material. Commander Thacmore stood before the testing apparatus, his yellow eyes fixed on the human suit that hung undamaged in the center of the chamber. Around him, his officers whispered among themselves in growing panic. Some had begun to pace nervously. Others stared at their instruments as if the readings might change if they looked hard enough. Chief Technician Vextar had run the same tests multiple times, convinced his equipment was malfunctioning. But every scan confirmed the impossible truth. The human suit had absorbed energy equivalent to destroying a small moon, yet showed no signs of stress or damage. Sir, Vextar called out, his voice shaking slightly. The molecular analysis is complete. Thacmore turned away from the suit to face his technician. Report. The material contains millions of microscopic machines, Commander. They are smaller than anything in our database. These machines appear to be alive in some way. They respond to incoming damage by working together to spread the impact across the entire surface of the suit. Machines? Kexval stepped closer to examine the readouts. Show me. On the main display screen, a magnified view of the suit's fabric appeared. At first, it looked like normal woven material. But as the magnification increased, tiny structures became visible. They moved constantly, flowing like water through the fibers. When the technician replayed footage of the plasma weapon test, the humans could see these microscopic machines rushing to the point of impact, forming dense clusters to absorb and redirect the energy. They repair damage instantly, Vextar explained. They also seem to learn from each attack. Watch this. He showed two clips side by side. In the first, the plasma bolt caused the machines to respond slowly, taking several seconds to fully absorb the energy. In the second clip from an hour later, the same weapon's energy was absorbed almost instantly. The suit becomes more resistant to attacks it has already experienced, Vextar concluded. A heavy silence filled the chamber. The implications were staggering. This was not just advanced armor, it was a living system that improved itself with every battle. Commander Thacmore walked slowly to where the human prisoners stood. Captain Mitchell watched him approach with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the entire ordeal. The other humans remained equally composed. What is this material? Thacmore demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Captain Mitchell met his gaze but said nothing. I asked you a question, human, Thacmore snarled, moving closer. One of the guards raised his weapon and pressed it against Mitchell's shoulder. The captain's expression did not change, but Engineer Emma Walsh stepped forward slightly. It won't matter if you threaten us, she said quietly. The suit systems are designed to protect the wearer. Your weapons cannot harm him while he wears it. Thacmore realized with growing horror that she was right. Even now, as prisoners, the humans wore thin undergarments that were probably made of the same impossible material. Answer my questions and perhaps I will show mercy, he tried again. This time Captain Mitchell spoke. Adaptive nanofiber weave with integrated energy displacement matrices, he said calmly. Standard issue for Terran Defense Corps personnel. Standard issue. Sub-Commander Kexval's voice cracked as he repeated the words. This technology surpasses our most advanced research. How can it be standard for your military? Mitchell smiled slightly. Because we learned long ago that flexibility often defeats rigid strength. Your armor is impressive, Commander, but it is built on old ideas. You think that stopping force requires meeting it with equal force. Our approach is different. Different how? Thakmore pressed. We learn to bend without breaking, Mitchell replied. Your thick metal plates can stop most attacks, but they fail completely when faced with something stronger. Our suits adapt to whatever tries to destroy them. Pilot Tom Bradley spoke up for the first time. We also learned that the best protection is often invisible. Your scanners can detect our suits, but they cannot understand how they work. That is by design. Communications Officer David Parker nodded. Every species we have encountered tries to build thicker walls when faced with stronger weapons. Humans chose a different path. Medic Lucy Harper added, our suits do not just protect us from physical damage. They monitor our health, provide medical support, and even help us survive in hostile environments. They are not just armor, they are partners. Commander Thakmore felt his world shifting around him. The Velthari Empire had conquered dozens of species through superior firepower and stronger defenses. They had never encountered an enemy that simply absorbed their attacks and grew stronger from them. Where did you obtain this technology? He asked. We developed it ourselves, Mitchell answered. Though we had excellent teachers along the way. The universe is full of dangers that cannot be stopped by thick armor alone. Black holes that twist space. Energy beings that exist as pure plasma. Creatures that phase between dimensions. We learned that survival often requires adaptation rather than resistance. Teachers? Kexval asked nervously. Mitchell's smile widened slightly. The galaxy is much larger and more dangerous than you realize, Commander. Humanity has been exploring for centuries. We have seen things that would terrify your bravest warriors. We have made allies among species you cannot imagine. And we have learned from every encounter. Thakmore stared at the human captain, a cold fear growing in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying that your empire has been expanding into a very small, very safe corner of space. And now you have attracted the attention of something much bigger than yourselves. Commander Thakmore paced back and forth in front of the human prisoners, his mind racing with disturbing possibilities. The revelation about their armor technology had shaken his confidence, but he was not ready to admit defeat. The Velthari had built their empire through strength and cunning, not by backing down from challenges. If this armor is so effective, he said slowly, then we shall test it properly. Not against machines, but in real combat. Sub-Commander Kexval looked uncertain. Commander, what do you have in mind? We will dress one of our finest warriors in this human suit and pit him against our best soldiers in the training arena. If the armor truly provides the protection these humans claim, our warrior should be unstoppable. The idea brought murmurs of approval from the gathered officers. Here was something they understood, combat testing under battlefield conditions. If the human armor was as good as it appeared, their warrior would demonstrate Velthari superiority by using human technology better than humans could. Bring me warrior Krathvex, Thakmore ordered. He is our strongest and most skilled fighter. Within minutes, Krathvex arrived in the testing chamber. He was massive even by Velthari standards, standing nearly 8 feet tall with muscles that bulged beneath his scaled skin. Battle scars covered his arms and face, proof of countless victories. His yellow eyes burned with eagerness for combat. Commander, Krathvex growled, you have a mission for me? You will wear this human armor and face 5 of our elite guards in combat, Thakmore explained. Show these humans how real warriors fight. The human suit looked ridiculously small next to the huge Velthari warrior. Captain Mitchell watched as the alien struggled to fit the armor onto Krathvex's massive frame. The material stretched and adapted, growing larger to accommodate the alien's size and shape. Fascinating, Engineer Emma Walsh observed quietly. The suit is trying to interface with his biology, but the neural patterns are all wrong. What do you mean? Thakmore demanded. Our armor bonds with the wearer's nervous system, she explained. It reads brainwaves, monitors stress levels, and responds to the user's thoughts and reflexes. Your warrior's mind works differently than a human's. The suit does not understand him. Thakmore dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. Velthari warriors are superior to humans in every way. If the armor works for your weak species, it will work even better for us. The combat arena was located in the ship's lower levels. It was a large circular room with high walls to contain the fighting. Weapon racks lined the sides, filled with various Velthari combat gear. Energy barriers separated the fighting area from observation platforms where officers could watch safely. Krathvex entered the arena wearing the human suit, which had turned a dark color to match his scales. He moved confidently, testing his range of motion. The armor felt strange, much lighter than his usual battle gear, and it seemed to pulse slightly against his skin. "Begin combat simulation," Thakmor announced from the observation deck. 5 elite Velthari guards entered the arena from the opposite side. They wore standard battle armor and carried plasma rifles, energy blades, and impact weapons. These were experienced soldiers who had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. The first guard fired his plasma rifle immediately. The bolt struck Krathvek's center mass, where it should have killed him instantly. Instead, the energy spread across the suit's surface like water, dissipating harmlessly. Krathvex laughed and charged forward. What followed was unlike any combat the Velthari had ever witnessed. Krathvex moved through a storm of weapons fire without taking damage. Plasma bolts, laser beams, and kinetic projectiles struck him repeatedly, but the suit absorbed every attack. He reached the first guard and struck him down with a single blow. The remaining guards tried to surround him, but Krathvex was unstoppable. Energy blades that could cut through starship hulls slid harmlessly off the human armor. Impact hammers that could crush stone had no effect. One by one, the elite guards fell before the seemingly invincible warrior. The Velthari officers cheered from the observation deck. This was proof of their superiority, using human technology better than the humans themselves. Commander Thakmor felt his confidence returning as he watched his warrior dominate the battlefield. But then something changed. Krathvex suddenly staggered in the middle of the arena. Strange symbols began appearing on the surface of the suit, alien markings that pulsed with red light. The warrior shook his head as if trying to clear it, then stumbled again. "What is happening?" Thakmor demanded. Captain Mitchell answered from behind his restraints. "The suit is rejecting him. It was designed for human physiology and human neural patterns. Your warrior's brain works differently than ours. The armor cannot properly interface with his nervous system." On the arena floor, Krathvex was clearly in distress. The suit had begun to tighten around him, and the warning symbols were flashing more rapidly. He tried to remove the armor, but it would not come off. "The suit thinks he is damaged or diseased," Medic Lucy Harper explained. "It is trying to provide medical assistance, but it does not understand Velthari biology. The treatment protocols are making him sick." Krathvex fell to his knees, gasping for air. The remaining guard in the arena approached cautiously, unsure what to do. Suddenly, all the lights on the suit went out. The armor went completely dead, leaving the warrior vulnerable for the first time since the battle began. The guard struck quickly, and Krathvex collapsed unconscious. Commander Thakmor stared down at his defeated champion, his mind reeling with the implications. The human armor was not just advanced technology, it was specifically designed for humans alone. The combat arena fell silent as Krathvex lay unconscious on the floor. The mighty Velthari warrior, who had never been defeated in battle, had been brought down not by enemy weapons but by the very armor meant to protect him. Commander Thakmor stared at the scene below, his confidence crumbling with each passing second. Captain Mitchell's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You have been studying us for months, Commander. Capturing our ships, analyzing our equipment, testing our defenses. But you made a critical mistake." Thakmor turned to face the human captain, his yellow eyes burning with fury and growing fear. "What mistake?" "You assumed we were unaware of your activities," Mitchell replied calmly. "You thought we were weak because we did not respond with immediate violence. What you fail to consider is that sometimes the absence of retaliation indicates preparation, not weakness." As if summoned by his words, the ship's alarm systems began wailing throughout the massive vessel. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as automated voices announced proximity warnings in the Velthari language. Every officer in the observation deck turned to look at the nearest communication screen. The display showed space around the Velthari flagship, and what they saw made their blood run cold. Dozens of sleek vessels had appeared from nowhere, surrounding the alien warship in perfect formation. The ships were unlike anything in their databases, smooth, organic-looking hulls that seemed to shift and flow like living metal. "Impossible," Subcommander Kexval breathed. "Our sensors showed empty space. Where did they come from?" "The same place your scanners have been looking for months without success," Engineer Emma Walsh answered. "We have been watching your empire expand, studying your tactics, learning about your technology. Every ship you captured, every probe you sent into our space, every scan you performed told us more about your capabilities." Commander Thakmore rushed to a communication panel and opened a channel to his bridge. Report. How many enemy vessels? The voice of his bridge commander crackled through the speakers, filled with panic. 47 ships, sir. They appeared simultaneously around our entire fleet. Our weapons are locked onto them, but their hull composition matches the material we have been testing. Our scans cannot penetrate their defenses. Captain Mitchell smiled for the first time since his capture. Admiral Davies, I presume you can hear this conversation. A new voice filled the chamber, speaking perfect Velthari despite clearly being human. Captain Mitchell, we have been monitoring your situation. Are you and your crew unharmed? We are fine, Admiral. Though our hosts have been quite educational about their testing procedures. Admiral Davies's voice hardened. Commander Thakmore of the Velthari Empire, you are holding kidnapped personnel and stolen property belonging to the Terran Defense Corps. You have 30 seconds to release them and surrender your vessel, or face the consequences. Thakmore found his voice, though it shook slightly. This is Velthari space. You have no authority here. We demand you withdraw immediately. Actually, Communications Officer David Parker spoke up, according to the Galactic Navigation Charter signed by 47 species including your own, this region is classified as neutral territory. Your attacks on our vessels constitute acts of war. The alien commander's mind raced as he tried to process this information. The Velthari had been careful to avoid direct confrontation with established galactic powers, picking on smaller, isolated species to build their empire. If the humans had formal recognition from other major civilizations. You are bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. No species possesses such advanced stealth technology. No one could hide an entire fleet from our sensors. Pilot Tom Bradley laughed softly. Commander, your sensors are designed to detect conventional propulsion systems, metal hulls, and energy signatures. Our ships use principles your science has not yet discovered. We learn stealth from species that have been hiding from predators for millions of years. On the communication screen, more human vessels continued to appear. The count had risen to over 60 ships, all of them identical in their sleek, impossible design. They moved without visible engines, turned without thrusters, and showed no energy signatures that Velthari instruments could identify. How? Thakmore whispered. We told you before, Captain Mitchell replied. We have had excellent teachers. Humanity has been exploring space for centuries, making contact with species across the galaxy. We learned from each encounter. Energy beings taught us to manipulate matter at the molecular level. Ancient civilizations showed us how to bend space and time. Machine intelligences helped us create technology that thinks and adapts. Medic Lucy Harper added, what you have seen today represents our standard exploration equipment. Our diplomatic corps. Our peacekeeping forces. She paused, letting the word sink in. You have not yet encountered our military. The implications hit Commander Thakmore like a physical blow. If this was their peaceful fleet, what did their warships look like? What weapons did their soldiers carry? How many species stood with them? 15 seconds, Commander, Admiral Davies announced over the communication system. Subcommander Kexval stepped closer to his superior. Sir, perhaps we should consider their terms. Our weapons cannot penetrate their hulls, and they have us outnumbered 3-1. Thakmore looked around the observation deck at his officers. These were veterans of dozens of conquests, warriors who had never known defeat. Now they stood with fear in their eyes, staring at enemies they could not fight and technology they could not understand. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Mitchell's expression became businesslike. To begin with, you will release my crew and return our stolen equipment. Then we will have a long discussion about the difference between strength and wisdom. Consider this your education in why humanity prefers diplomacy, Commander. He gestured toward the screens showing the surrounding human fleet. It is not because we are weak.